Greetings. What, mortal? I must hunt soon. What is it now? Greetings. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. What is it now? You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Greetings. Agreed. Die. Very well. Death rages. Agreed. I hunger. That was my plan. I must hunt soon. You thought of that? That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? Die. Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. I hunger. Your soul is mine. You thought of that? Death rages. Very well. You thought of that? Die. I hunger. Very well. Greetings. Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? Die. Agreed. What is it now? Very well. You thought of that? I hunger. Very well. You thought of that? Die. What, mortal? What is it now? Agreed. I must hunt soon. What, mortal? Greetings. What is it now? What, mortal? Greetings. That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my plan. I hunger. Very well. Die. Death rages. I must hunt soon. Greetings. Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. Die. Death rages. Agreed. I hunger.
First blood.
We're under attack. Die. You thought of that? I hunger. What is it now? That was my plan. Very well. Die. That was my plan. I hunger. What, mortal? Agreed. I must hunt soon. Death rages. You thought of that? I hunger. Greetings. What, mortal? That was my plan. Death rages. Agreed. Very well. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. Die. Very well. Agreed. What is it now? I hunger. Death rages. That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that? Greetings. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. You thought of that? What is it now? I must hunt soon. Greetings. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Very well. I must hunt soon. You thought of that? Very well. Agreed. Greetings. Your soul is mine. You thought of that? Very well. I hunger. What, mortal? What is it now? What, mortal? That was my plan. What is it now? Agreed. I must hunt soon. You thought of that? Very well. What is it now? That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. Greetings. What, mortal? Greetings. What, mortal? Greetings. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. What is it now? Agreed. Die. I must hunt soon. You thought of that? Agreed. What is it? Greetings. You thought of that? What, mortal? I hunger. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? That was my plan. Death rages. Death rages. Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. Greetings. Die. I must hunt soon. You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. Greetings. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. I must hunt soon.
Greetings, friend.
What, mortal?
We're under
You
attack!
thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? Greetings. Agreed. You thought of that? What, mortal? Very well. I must hunt soon. Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. Very well. I hunger. What, mortal? You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. What is it now? Death rages. Agreed. What, mortal? Die. Your soul is mine. You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my plan. What is it now? Greetings. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. I hunger. Very well. That was my plan. Death rages. Very well. That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. Very well. Agreed. What is it now? What, mortal? Greetings. What is it now? You thought of that? What, mortal? That was my plan. Agreed. Die. That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that? That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Agreed. What, mortal? You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? What is it now? Very well. I must hunt soon. What, mortal? Greetings. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. What? Greetings. I must hunt soon. Greetings. I must hunt soon. You thought of that? What, mortal? I must hunt soon. Agreed.
Hello there.
What is it now? What, mortal? You thought of that? Very well. I hunger. You thought of that? That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Very well. Agreed. Very well. Greetings. That was my plan. Very well. I must hunt soon. Greetings. You thought of that? What is it now? Agreed. That was my plan. I must hunt soon. What is it now? I must hunt soon. You thought of that? Very well. What is it? Greetings. What, mortal? I must hunt soon. Die. Death rages. I hunger. Death rages. What is it now? Greetings. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? What, mortal? Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? What is it now? Very well. I must hunt soon. Greetings.
Research
What,
complete.
mortal? Agreed. Death rages. Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. I hunger. I must hunt soon. Agreed. What, mortal?
We're under attack!
What is it now? What, mortal? You thought of that? That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. Very well.
We're under attack!
Greetings. I must hunt soon. Your soul is mine. What is it now? I must hunt soon. What is it now? What, mortal? Greetings. What, mortal? Greetings. Your soul is mine. What, mortal? That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. That double kill. Die. Greetings. What, mortal? What is it now? Death rages. You thought of that? I hunger. Very well. Die. I must hunt soon. Agreed. Very well. Agreed. What is it now? That was my plan. Death rages. Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. Greetings. What, mortal? Agreed. You thought of that? That was my plan.
We're under
You
attack!
thought of that? Beckons. Agreed. You thought of that? What, mortal? What is it now? That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. Die. Agreed. Agreed. You thought of that? Death rages. That was my plan. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. Agreed. Greetings. What, mortal? You thought of that? Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. What is it now? That was my plan. Die. Very well. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that? Very well. What, mortal? You thought of that? Very well. Greetings. That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. What is it now? You thought of that? Very well. You thought of that? Greetings. I must hunt soon. What, mortal? What is it now? Very well. You thought of that? What, mortal? That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. Greetings. What is it now? What, mortal? Greetings. You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. What, mortal? Very well. Greetings. That was my plan. I hunger. What is it now? What, mortal? Agreed. You thought of that? What is it now? Die. Very well. Greetings. What, mortal? I hunger. That was my plan. Greetings. What is it now? Die.
We're under attack!
Greetings. What is it now? Greetings. Agreed. I must hunt soon. You thought of that? What is it now? Agreed. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that? Night beckons. I must hunt.
Greetings, friend.
What, mortal? What is it now? Greetings. What, mortal? That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that. What is it now? Very well. Death rages. You thought of that? Greetings. What is it now? Very well. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. was my plan. What? I must hunt soon. What, mortal? Agreed. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? Greetings. Agreed. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? What is it now? What, mortal? Agreed. Very well. Die. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. I must hunt soon. What, mortal? What is it now? You thought of that? What, mortal? I must hunt soon. Greetings. Agreed. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. What is it now? You thought of that? That was my plan. Night beckons. What, mortal? I must hunt soon. Very well. What, mortal? Agreed. Greetings. What, mortal? That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. Your soul is mine. That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Very well. That was my plan. What, mortal? Greetings. I must hunt soon. Agreed. What is it now? The night beckons. What, mortal? Greetings. I must hunt soon. Very well. That was my plan. Greetings. What? I must hunt soon. Agreed. That was my plan. I hunger. What is it now? Very well. I must hunt.
We're under attack!
Thought of that? is it now? What, mortal? Greetings. What, mortal? What is it now?
We're under attack!
Death rages. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan.
Research complete.
Greetings. You thought of that? That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. What, mortal? I hunger. Greetings. I must hunt soon. What is it now? Die. You thought of that? That was my plan. Death rages. You thought of that? Your soul is mine. That was my plan. I hunger. Agreed. Double kill. Night beckons. You thought of that? Greed. Agreed. Agreed. Very well. Agreed. Very well. Death rages. Agreed. I must hunt soon. Night beckons. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. What is it now? Very well. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. What, mortal? Very well. You thought of that? Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Very well. Your soul is mine. Agreed. You thought of that? What, mortal? That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my plan. Beckons. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. That was my plan. You thought of that? Very well. Agree. Death rages. You thought of that? I hunger. Very well. Agreed. Very well. Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. What is it now? Greetings. Very well. What is it now? You thought of that? I must hunt soon. Greetings. I must hunt soon. What, mortal? Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. Death rages. That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that? That was my plan. Greetings. You thought of that? Your soul is mine. I hunger. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. The night beckons. Agreed. What? Agreed. Very well. Greetings. What is it now? What, mortal? I must hunt soon. Greetings. Agreed. What is it now? You thought of that? What, mortal? Very well. You thought of that? Very well. You thought of that? That was my... What is it now? You thought of that? Agreed. Die, death creatures. That was my plan. You thought of that? Die. Very well. Your soul is mine. You thought of that? Your soul is mine. Death creatures. Die. I hunger. Die. Agreed. That was my plan. Double kill!